I guess the first thing would be emissions. I mean, that's really what it came down to for me. But it was also a great opportunity to talk about the technology, because at the beginning, 9 years ago, people would come up to me all the time and say, so where do you plug it in? And of course you don't plug in a hybrid. And it was a great opportunity to educate people about the technology and how it worked. As an educator, I guess I appreciated that. Has it saved me money in terms of operating costs? No. I mean, if you try to amortize the value of the car, I mean, a Prius runs base list price about $22,000. You could buy something similar that wasn't hybrid for at least $6,000 less. How long does it take to recover that? I mean, you can just do the math. I think most people don't. I'm guessing they pay back somewhere around 12 or 13 years. I don't intend to keep the car that long. I'm helping the environment more than if I were driving a Delta 88, I mean, yeah, but is this going to save the planet? Absolutely not. I mean, it's a mid-step technology. We have to get beyond the Prius type. And also there's a lot of greenwashing with not necessarily the Prius, but certainly with hybrid technology. So when you see an Escalade with foot-high letters on the side of it saying hybrid, I find that offensive. Well, I think it's kind of important to me, actually. That's one reason, and certainly not the only reason, that I would buy a Prius versus, let's say, a Honda Civic hybrid. Because the Honda Civic hybrid just looks like another Honda Civic. I prefer a car that's built from the ground up to be a hybrid. And so that's another reason I would prefer the Prius. But it does make a statement, and I think that's true for a lot of people. That they do like, especially at the beginning, 9 years ago, it made a statement, and it reflects my values. But I'm not going to have foot-high letters along the side of the car that say hybrid. There are limits. I fly a lot, which is the worst thing you can do for the environment. So if I'm going to go to San Diego or LA for work, I'm not going to drive. But if you're thinking more locally, I really don't consider alternative forms of transportation. The thing the car does for you is it lets you go where you want, when you want. And until public transportation can better mirror that, as it does on the East Coast, then I'm not likely to take public transportation. Convenience is huge. But the other thing is our kind of libertarian mindset. I mean, we philosophically believe in personal liberty. And the automobile gives us personal liberty. And we especially in the West, resist the idea of moving to more collective modes of transportation because we're so radically individualistic. So I think that's one of the big drivers. It is convenience, but it's also something more fundamental than that. I think it is, but the question that always hangs in the air is it going to be fast enough? What's interesting to me from a market point of view is the oil cartels have gotten smart. They have a big dog in this fight. And so they realize that if gas goes up to $4, $5 a gallon, it is going to stimulate investment in alternative technologies in the auto industry. They don't want that to happen because they have a vested interest in keeping us dependent on their oil. So they restrict, or they actually increase supply. And once they increase supply, the price drops, and then people stop talking so much about alternative technologies. Because there's not necessarily a fundamental values commitment to the change in technology. If it's driven by economics, we're still in the control, to some extent, of the market, which is not a free market for oil, because it's controlled by a small number of players who collaborate to restrict supply or increase supply as they see fit. environmental catastrophe, perhaps? I mean, I'm not saying that in a completely facetious way, but it'll have to happen when people realize that there is irreparable harm being done to the environment the way that we live our lives today. You know, that's what has to happen. And I don't think we have that consciousness. We don't think long term. We say that in every business class, but it doesn't change. But we're not thinking long term enough. We're not thinking about the 7th generation out. And what kind of a planet are we leaving behind? The fact is that nature will win, with or without our species. Nature has an amazing ability to heal itself, and we've seen that with the Exxon Valdez. You know, that nature actually has this amazing healing capacity. But I think we have to think carefully about if we're going to make mistakes. I would rather err on the side of caution. Suppose global warming isn't taking place. Well, we're going to spend $1 trillion as if it were, but we're probably going to avoid catastrophe if we do that. But what if we decide, well, you know, I'm not so convinced global warming is taking place. What are we risking? Not trillions of dollars. We're risking the very survival of our species. I'd rather risk the trillions than risk the survival of the species myself.